What's good guys, it's Aida and welcome back to another video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I post videos every Tuesday and Saturday, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I post. So Britain, United Kingdom, GB, you need to do better, man. We need to do better. I grew up thinking that British people were really proper, really polite. They just like to mind their own business. And these things are true to some extent, but as time goes on, I start to question why these things are and how they affect us as a people. Most recently, I came across a video of two London-based dancers doing the Level Up challenge across London. And in one scene, they were on the tube. Let me just show you what it is so you can understand what I'm talking about. Look. This is exactly what I mean when I say that we are too polite, we are too proper, we mind our business too much. We act like nothing is happening around us, we mind our own damn business. And is this good? Heck no. You can literally be on the train, someone put their hand up your skirt and everyone else act like nothing happened because they're being too polite and minding their own business. Someone replied to the tweet saying in America they probably called the police. That right there is the difference. The difference between Great Britain and America, between covert and overt racism. I feel like in public, British people tend to be, or definitely not all of them, but a lot of them tend to not want to get involved. They kind of want to stick to themselves. They don't want to stick their neck out and say their opinions. They can be quite reserved and, well, secretive, to the point where I didn't even know about the British slave trade until I was in my 20s. A whole me, born and bred in England, and it wasn't until I actively seeked out the information that I found out about this country's history. There's a section in the Black and British book which I haven't finished. I mean, look at this book. It's huge. David Olusoga talks about Enoch Powell, who was the British politician back in the 60s, I believe. Enoch Powell, he didn't like immigrants calling themselves British. He felt as though British people had their own race. And if you came from outside the country and migrated here, you shouldn't be classed as a citizen. You shouldn't have the rights as a citizen. You ain't British. So I'm going to read to you just a little bit of this book. Enoch Powell is remembered as the man who signed the political warrant for the racial prejudice and wave of racial violence that were unleashed against Britain's post-war Black and Asian populations. What is less remembered is that what became known as Powellism was also a call made by a scholar of the classical past for the denial and disavowal of parts of 400 years of history. The loss of the empire, in Powell's view, made jettisoning imperial history necessary, as only through this amputation could his vision of England as an ethnic and racial state be realised and continuity with the past ensured. Counterintuitively, it was only by turning their back on English history could the English save themselves. Yet, the history that was jettisoned was the very history that explained where the immigrant-descended population had come from, who they were, what they had been through, and why they were here. Jamaican-born British intellect Stuart Hall explained to his British readers that the immigrants are here because you were there. Then he goes on to say, Powell's appeal to the imagined past was only possible because when he gave his speech in the early 1960s, two distinct processes of historical forgetting had largely removed Black people from the island history version of British history. In the first of those processes, the chapters of British history in which fate, statuses and humanity of Black people had been critical and central, those dealing with British slavery and the empire in Africa, had been marginalised and quarantined into historical specialisms. In the second process, the story of the long presence of Black people within Britain itself had been rendered almost invisible. The most effective and remarkable of these had been almost surgical excision of slavery and the slave trade from the histories of Britain of the 17th, 18th and 19th centuries. Here, geography coupled with a strong urge to focus on abolition rather than slavery had made the process easier. The cotton plantations of the American South existed on the soil of the United States itself. British slavery took place an ocean away on the islands of the Caribbean or the plantations of the North American colonies. As a result, even today, many people in Britain have a more vivid image of American slavery than they do of life as it was for enslaved Africans on the British plantations of the Caribbean. They erased history. They literally took a chapter out of the history books and said, you know what, this didn't happen. No one needs to know about this. Hey, we're just gonna tell them that, you know, the Americans are the ones that enslaved people. We didn't do nothing. We're just gonna live off their wealth, you know, enlist their soldiers into our wars, and act like nothing happened. It didn't physically happen on English soil, so no one needs to know about it. Whereas in America, it happened in their soil. Their history is woven in their grass and it blows in the wind. There's no escaping that. It cannot be brushed under the rug and forgotten about. Here in the UK, we just live off their wealth, take their soldiers and use them for wars, and then tell them they have no right to be in this country, that we don't welcome immigrants, that we want to keep Britain white. This is England. And this strategy of erasing history and acting like it didn't happen has worked, if you ask me. And I'm not the only person who thinks that. Rennie Edo-Lodge, the author of Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, also agrees with me. She says, for an embarrassingly long period of time, I didn't even realise that black people had been slaves in Britain. Most of my knowledge of black history was American history. I've said this before and I say this again. I feel as though black British people live their lives or their black experience through the American lens, especially when growing up. And I used to think it was because we don't have that many black British TV shows. But it's not just because of that. We do have quite a few. We have our own music and everything. But I think it just stems from school, from what we're taught when we're growing up. When it comes to slavery, when it comes to Black History Month, we aren't taught about Black British history. We're taught about American history and only specific points, like specific kinds of American history. I wasn't taught about Malcolm X. I was taught about Martin Luther King and like Rosa Parks and that kind of thing. But you're kind of led to believe that black people didn't come to the UK until 70 years ago, when in actual fact, we've been here for centuries. In my opinion, British people are by nature covert people, and I think that needs to change. At least in America, you know where you stand. Here, you could be walking on the street not knowing if someone hates you or how they feel about you. They could be smiling in your face. You could be working with these people and they could be acting all nice to your face, but in reality, they hate your guts. My question to you is, do you feel as though you know about Black British history? Do you feel like you were taught about it? Do you know why this tiny little country is so rich? Or why people from Asia, Africa and the Caribbean have migrated here, of all places? Let me know in the comment section below. Until next time guys, peace, love and life.